This video will explain how to do figured bass and Roman numeral analysis of a score. So suppose we had to analyze some chords in this song by Fanny Hensel. I'll play it for you. Here are the steps that we will follow. First, we will write a snowman version of each chord. Next, we will determine that chord's root and quality. Then, we will figure out which member of the chord is in the bass, and then we'll use that information to write the bass figure. Finally, we will determine the scale degree of the root, and we will use that information to write the Roman numeral. So we'll go back to the score in a second. First, let me review the figured bass symbols. So here is an example of a triad. You remember in its simplest possible form. We can also call that the snowman form. When you write a triad like this, so that it looks like a stack of thirds or a snowman, it has three members, what we call the root, the third, and the fifth of that triad. And when you are determining the inversion of the chord, what you need to do is determine which member of this triad is on the bottom. In other words, which member of the triad is the lowest note in the texture. If the root is on the bottom, we call that root position. If the third of that triad, in other words, this one, is on the bottom, we call that first inversion. The figured bass symbol for first inversion is 6. Also sometimes 6-3, but that doesn't happen very often. If the fifth of that triad is on the bottom, we call that second inversion. And the figured bass symbol for that is 6-4. And just to back up, if the root of the triad is on the bottom, the figured bass symbol for that is nothing. Or sometimes 5-3, but you don't see that very often. Okay. Finally, there are two other chords that we'll encounter quite often. That is the suspended fourth chord and a seventh chord in root position. The figured bass for a sus4 chord is just 4, and the figured bass symbol for a seventh chord is 7. So these are the figured bass symbols that you should know. There are other ones too, and if you keep studying, you will encounter them, but these are the ones we need to know for now. Let's go back to the score now, and let's follow our steps. We're going to make snowman-style reductions of these chords right here, and then we'll determine the root and the quality, and then we'll use that information to figure out the bass figures and the Roman numerals. Okay, let's take a look at this first chord right here. And let's back up. The very first thing we need to do is figure out what key we are in. So there are 3 sharps in the key signature, and so we go up a half step to determine that we are in A major. A major, okay. And let's take a look at this first chord. I'll read these notes. They are A, C sharp, A, and E. Note here that this is a bass clef, and these 3 parts are treble clef. The tenor part sounds an octave lower than written, but that doesn't matter for us for now. Okay, so let's make a snowman-style reduction of this chord. And this is just like what you did for the Nashville number system. I'll write a treble clef right here. I'll copy down the key signature. And I'll copy down each of the notes in this chord, ignoring repetitions. So we have an A. We have a C sharp. We have an A, but I already have that, so I'll skip that. And we have an E. Okay, and it looks like I have a snowman version of that chord already. Okay, so what kind of chord is this? Sorry. That is an A major chord. Remember, there's a C sharp here in the key signature, so A to C sharp is 4 semitones, C sharp to E is 3, therefore this is A major. Okay, so we have the root and the quality of this chord. Next, what we need to do is we need to determine which note is on the bottom. In other words, which note is in the bass? And that's going to be this very bottom part right here. Okay, so the bass has an A, and A right here is the root of the triad. That means this chord right here is in root position. So the bass figure symbol for a root position chord, recall, is nothing. Just leave it blank, like so. You could also write 5-3, but leaving it blank is also a completely correct answer. Okay, so we've taken care of that part. Next, we need to give a Roman numeral to this chord. And the Roman numerals are a lot like the Nashville number system. The Roman numeral means what scale degree is the root of that chord. So again, the root of this chord is A, and if we're in the key of A major, scale A is scale degree 1. That's easy. And the system for Roman numerals is you use capital for a major chord, lowercase for a minor chord. We already determined that this was a major chord, so I'll write this as a capital 1. All right, one chord down, 2 to go. Let's take a look at this next chord. Right there. Sorry. That's the chord. All right, I'll name these notes A, F sharp, A, D. Let's see if we can make a snowman style reduction of this chord. Let's see, we have an A, we have an F sharp, we have an A, I already have that, so I'll skip that repetition, and we have a D. Okay, does this chord look like a snowman yet? No, not yet. So here we'll do a little bit of trial and error. Let's try moving that D down an octave to here. Okay, here we go. Now we have a snowman version of this chord. I will play it. That's D, F sharp, and A. Again, remember that there's F sharp in the key signature. So this is a D major chord. All right, we've determined the root and quality of this chord. Next, we need to ask ourselves, what member of this chord is in the bass or on the bottom? So here the bass is A. Okay, and where is there an A in this chord? Oh, it's right here. Okay, so this is one of these chords where the root is D, but the bass actually has a different note. It's not the root. Okay, because the fifth is in the bass, the term for this is second inversion, or the fifth is on the bottom, and the figured bass is 6/4. Okay, here's a chord again. If this chord were in root position, D would be on the bottom, and it would sound like this. But D is not on the bottom. It sounds like this. Okay, so that is a 6/4 chord. So I'll write that as 6/4. And then I'll look at the root of this chord and use that information to write down the Roman numeral. Okay, so D is scale degree 4 in the key of A major. I'll play an A major scale. There's the D, and notice that I stopped on the 4th note. So we'll label this with a Roman numeral 4, and because it's a major chord, we'll use capital Roman numeral 4. Okay, so this is a 4/6/4 chord. Last chord. You'll notice that I skipped this chord right here. The reason for that is because it's the same chord as this one, so there's no change in chord there. Okay, let's look at this chord here. We have A, C sharp, A, and E. Okay, I'll make a snowman style reduction of that chord. Okay, A, C sharp, A, and E. Okay, I'll play that chord. Okay, that is an A major chord. The root is A, and that's a major chord. What note is in the bass? So if you look at the bass part here, A is in the bass. Okay, so in fact, this is just like this chord over here. Okay, so it's because it's in root position, we don't write anything in the figured bass, and then we already know that an A major chord is Roman numeral 1. Okay? So these are the chords in the first two measures of this song. We have Roman numeral 1, and then 4, 6, 4, and then back to 1. Okay? Let's look at a few more chords. So here is, here is the next part of this song, and we'll do this chord, and this chord. Okay? Here we go. Let's start with this one right here. And for this one, we should look at this entire section right here, just because that's it's an incomplete chord. The chord is not complete. The chord is not complete here, but it becomes complete here. And you would not have known that unless I didn't tell you, but you'll have to take my word on that. Let's do a snowman style reduction. So I'll write a treble clef. I'll write the 3 sharps in the key signature, and we are still in the key of A major. Okay. So let's write down the notes of this chord. First we'll read them. E, G sharp, D, D, and again E, B, D, G sharp. Okay, let's write down those notes. We have an E, we have a G sharp, we have a D. There's a D. Let's keep going. There's an E, we already have that. A B. Okay, we have a D, I already have that. We have a G sharp, I already have that. Okay, does this chord look like a snowman or a stack of thirds? Well, no, not yet. We have that second there between the E and the D. So we'll have to move these notes around to see if we can turn this into a stack of thirds. I could try moving this B down an octave. That doesn't help us because that doesn't get rid of the second. What if I take this D and move it up? Aha, there we go. That makes a nice stack of thirds. It sounds like this. Okay, so that is our chord. All right, and what kind of chord is this? Well, the root is E, and notice that the first 3 notes sound like a major triad, and then there's a minor third on top. So that is a major, minor 7. E, major, minor 7. Okay, it's also called a dominant 7th. All right, and recall that the figured bass for a major minor 7, or for a 7th chord, is 7. Okay, so I'll write 7 there. And then next question, what is the scale degree of the root? So our root is E. Oh, and I should point out also, I'm sorry, let's back up. E is in the bass, and E is also the root of the chord, so this is a root position 7th chord. Okay. Final question, what scale degree is E? Well, I'll play an A major scale and I'll stop on E, and please tell me what number did I stop on? That's E, and that is the 5th note of the scale, or scale degree 5. So we're going to label this with a Roman numeral 5, which is V. All right? I'll play those 2 chords. Here's the next chord. Okay, let's analyze this chord. And I'll do the snowman style reduction over here. All right, let's read the notes of this chord. We have F sharp, A, C sharp, A. I'll write out these notes. F sharp, A, C sharp I'll put up here, and A we already have. Here it is. Okay. So the F sharp to A is 3 semitones. The A to C sharp is 4 semitones. So this is a minor chord. This is an F sharp, minor chord. I'll play it again. All right. And next step, what note is in the bass? There's our bass note. It's F sharp. and F sharp is also the root of the chord. So this chord is in root position, and so for the base figure, we just leave it alone. We leave it blank. Finally, we'll look at the root inequality to write down the Roman numeral. Well, if E is scale degree 5, then F sharp is going to be scale degree 6. And because this is a minor chord, our Roman numeral for this chord is going to be a lowercase Roman numeral 6. So 6 is VI, and so I'll do a V and lowercase v and a lowercase I, like that. That's our next chord. Last one. This one right here. And sorry, we're kind of running out of space. I'll do my snowman style reduction here. Let's name these notes. D, D, F sharp, B. All right. Here's a D. Here's a D again. Here's an F sharp. Here's a B. Okay. So here we have a snowman version of this chord. And D to B is 3 semitones. D to F sharp is 4. So this is another minor chord. It's B minor. Another minor triad. All right. Next step, we determine what note is in the bass or on the bottom. So here D is on the bottom, and D is not the root of the chord, it's the third right there. Okay, because look, there's a D, and the D is the third of that chord. When the third is on the bottom, we call that first inversion. So the figured bass symbol here is going to be 6. All right. Finally, we'll use the root inequality to write our Roman numeral. Okay, so the root is B. B is the second note of an A major scale. So this is going to be a Roman numeral 2. And because it's a minor chord, it's going to be a lowercase Roman numeral 2. So I'm going to write that lowercase I, like so. Okay, so that was a lot of information. Take a deep breath and relax. And with this information, you can do the figure-based Roman numeral analysis of a score. As you get more used to it, it comes easier, but it's a lot of information to take in at first, I know. Thank you all. Have a great day.